Good evening, I'm Jason Vio. Meg is off tonight. This is CBC Windsor News live at 6. Thank you so much for watching. Here's what's making news tonight. Budget cuts at the Essex Region Conservation Authority will explain how that's expected to affect the community coming up. There are new street drugs that are making the overdose crisis even more complicated. One outreach worker is calling for more tools to help the situation here in Windsor. And Christmas is coming early for kids at Windsor Regional Hospital. A local 12-year-old girl raised money to buy them all gifts. There's a new hard drug that's been showing up on Ontario streets, including right here in Windsor. It's known as tran, and it eats the flesh of people who use it. The CBC's Ellen Morrow went to Philadelphia to look at the human cost of this growing crisis, what Canada can learn from it, and how it's affecting people right here in Windsor.
As you see, I got like infection everywhere.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
That just appeared days ago.
Yeah. And see how deep it goes? Like, that's insane.
Ryan Green is a victim of a new street drug, eating away at the bodies of those who use it.
My arm swelled up like about this big, and it was like an abscess. It hurt so bad. This is a real tran sore.
Tran is fentanyl mixed with xylazine, an animal tranquilizer meant for horses and cattle.
You end up unconscious to the point where people will just rob you when you're asleep every time.
And it's completely taken over Philadelphia's Kensington neighborhood, block after block of devastating harm.
For about a year now, there's been this mobile clinic coming to this neighborhood because so many people here have terrible skin-rotting wounds from the drug.
You stay safe. How you doing? All right, what are we gonna do first? Your arm and then your head? All right, take a deep breath. I'm sorry. You know, I don't mean to hurt you.
The clinic is run by the city and a local hospital, and Ryan is a regular here.
Yeah, this hurts really bad.
Yeah, it hurts because it's really infected.
Nurse practitioner Michelle Murphy-Rosansky treats about 25 patients every day.
You okay? We see people who have lost multiple body parts. In the summer, we do see a lot of maggots because they get into the wounds. Yeah, it's brutal.
Like so many, Ryan at first didn't know his fentanyl had been cut with xylazine. Now he's addicted to the mix.
But still come back tomorrow. Let me write the prescription, so don't leave yet.
What's happening here is extreme, but it could also serve as a warning because tran is showing up in Canada too, making the overdose crisis even worse.
The Canadian Centre on Substance Use and Addiction says xylazine, or tran, has emerged as an increasingly common cutting agent.
Now, Health Canada is warning that tran is being found more in Canada.
Health Canada says cases of xylazine in street drugs it analyzed jumped from 5 to more than 1,300 over the last 5 years. It's being found most in Ontario.
We're in Windsor, a border city in southern Ontario, and it's been hit really hard by the opioid crisis with rising overdose deaths. And like in Philadelphia, outreach workers and people who use drugs say the drug supply here is becoming even more toxic.
The levels are nowhere near Philadelphia. Still, with tran's arrival here, Lacey Kresman's outreach has become more urgent.
What can I get for you?
Narcan, both
injectable and nasal?
She distributes supplies so people can use drugs safely.
You remember when I was here the other day, I was talking about that xylazine stuff.
tran, right?
Right. It changes how we respond to overdose. It looks a lot different. So
I've even noticed that because people who are on Fetty that don't know they're doing tran, they'll be stumbling and be like, I'm not high. And you're like, you can't even stand straight. You are high on something. Thank you.
Is the situation getting worse here?
I don't know if it's getting worse. What I will say is I think it's getting more complex in the way that we offer outreach services. Have you guys heard about xylazine? Yeah. It's causing a lot of skin wounds and
like that?
Exactly like that.
This is healed. That's 2 months healed.
Lacey quickly comes across this man who says he overdosed, was given naloxone to reverse it moments before.
How long were you Narcan ago? You know that he can go back into overdose, though, right? Do you want me to wait with him while you go get him a drink?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, of course.
No one knows what he's taken, so Lacey keeps close, because if it's xylazine, naloxone won't work. That's part of why Lacey is so worried.
How dangerous is that when someone, gets fentanyl, they don't know tranq is in it, they take it, and they just didn't know what they had? How dangerous is that for them?
It's not dangerous, it's fatal. I'm training people on how to respond to polysubstance overdoses. And right now, that could be anything. And so we want to keep people alive, we want to keep them breathing.
Ontario's chief coroner says xylazine has been detected in more than 100 overdose deaths since 2020. Windsor police say they've found fentanyl mixed with xylazine in 2 drug busts since 2022. It's not clear if it was added locally, but in some ways it doesn't matter.
We've already had 2 confirmed xylazine deaths in Windsor, Essex.
Where xylazine was in the fentanyl someone took?
Yes. And unfortunately, it's always playing a game of catch up. I'm sure that it's a lot worse than what we're seeing in the statistics right now.
That makes knowing what's in drugs so important. In Toronto, street drugs from around the city are dropped off here every day.
Hi, how's it going?
A lab at St. Michael's Hospital.
It's supposed to be fentanyl.
Where testing is done to see what's in them.
Caffeine, benzoyl, a little bit of aprazolam.
Karen McDonald is with the Toronto Drug Checking Service.
So we found 7 drugs in this sample. That includes floral fentanyl. We also found bromazolam. We found xylazine. So xylazine is a central nervous system depressant, and so using it in combination with fentanyl increases the risk of dangerous suppression of the vitals. It is a drug that is not approved for human use. In the spring of 2022 was when it was really at its peak. We were finding xylazine in 20% of the fentanyl samples that we checked.
This peak here, this is xylazine.
Levels fluctuate, hovering around 10% for this year. But that could change, or other unexpected additives could show up at any time.
So what that means is that the drug supply is getting stronger. It's just getting worse and worse and worse. More contaminated, less predictable.
I am a person who uses drugs. Right now, I am not in active use.
There's not much testing in Windsor. That means Brandon Bailey, who struggles staying clean, might never know what he's actually taking.
That's scary. There is times where I've relapsed, where I've wanted to not use, and then I ended up using on a day. And yeah, when I end up with something that has that, I'm not the person that I want to be.
Have you had an experience where you've overdosed?
I've had it where I've gone to sleep and then I wake up and I don't have any concept, so I could have been overdosing. I don't know. I could have died. It's not just people who are living in poverty or people who are homeless. It's happening to absolutely anybody.
The real battle, getting ahead of tranq before it really takes hold here.
Testing is paramount to be able to better support people who are using the substances, and funding for those initiatives are really, really important in the work that we do.
Still, it's the personal toll that drives Lacey. She knows all too well what's at stake.
I'm so struck by when you talk about the fact that most of your friends from high school have died because of overdoses.
Yeah.
That's really heavy.
It is really heavy, and my hope is that it will change.
Back in Philadelphia, ground zero for tackling tranq.
Now it's been found in 48 out of 50 states.
Mel Bettis remains determined.
I know you want it. Yeah.
In recovery herself, Bettis works with Savage Sisters, one of the main outreach organizations in Kensington.
So both my arms were completely open from like here to here. I was fortunate enough that they healed and I got tattoos over them.
To cover the scars?
Yeah. Yeah.
Does the shark mean anything?
I just like sharks.
Just like sharks. We're starting to see trank a little bit more in Canada, which is why we're here. What would you say to communities where it is starting to appear?
Educate yourselves, learn as much as you can. A big thing is stigma and the language you use. This isn't anybody's plan for themselves. You know, nobody chooses this.
That was the CBC's Ellen Morrow reporting. Now, there are concerns tonight over cuts at the Essex Region Conservation Authority. Last night, its board decided it can't fund 2 programs next year, and that's because Windsor City Council has decided not to fund its share of those programs. Now, that decision could affect the authority's ability to acquire land in the future. The CBC's Dale Molnar brings us that story.
One of the programs is called the Land Acquisition Program, the program which has allowed IRCA to acquire things like the former Queso railway line for trail use. The other program is the Watershed Stewardship Agricultural Outreach Program. One of the things the program does is help farmers practice techniques to cut down on runoff of fertilizers, which can lead to algae blooms in our drinking water. That has environmentalists like Derek Coronado concerned.
Controlling and limiting that kind of pollution is very important, not only for water quality and the health of the region, but think of, for example, tourism. Or do people actually want to visit the lakes and see that kind of thing? I don't think it's something that people would be attracted to. So it has economic impacts as well. It's not just an environmental detriment.
Someone chooses to change the formula or pull back from it, those positions are unsupported. And that is a very, very valuable program area for us. And it's freaking ridiculous.
IRCA CAO Tim Burney was visibly upset by the fallout the funding shortfall from the city has caused. At last night's IRCA board meeting, council members from the other municipalities wondered if Windsor could pull funding, could they do the same thing?
If Windsor doesn't want to pay for the ag part, maybe Leamington doesn't want to pay for the Grand Maris grain. Is there a give and take here now, or is this just going to create the Hatfields and McCoy?
This day is not for me, and I don't think for many of us, a good day.
Councillor Kieran McKenzie says having Windsor pull out of land acquisition funding undermines IRCA's ability to acquire land on a timely basis. And moreover, he says Larry Verbeke makes a good point.
If Windsor isn't going to fund this program at the same level as all of the other municipalities, then other municipalities have a very good question to ask in terms of whether or not they should continue to fund the program at the same level.
And that, he says, can result in a domino effect that could lead to many other non-mandatory programs being underfunded and cut altogether. As a result of the agriculture program suspension, an agriculture technician was laid off. IRCA has already laid off its climate change officer because municipalities opted not to fund it. The IRCA board will vote on next year's budget of $8.8 million in the new year. Dale Molnar, CBC News, Essex.
Starting today, all federally regulated employers, including public service departments, crown corporations, banks, and airports, must provide free menstrual products in all employee washrooms.
Don't ask people to come with their own toilet paper. This is very much a fact of life for millions of employees. And we start here, and I think 94% of employees are within provincial jurisdiction. I think a lot of provinces and territories may look at this, and employers on their own, and follow suit.
In addition to providing free tampons and menstrual pads, workplaces are required to have a covered disposal unit in every toilet stall. Now, these changes to the Canada Labour Code were announced back in May. Students in the leadership class at Vincent Massey Secondary School have proven their charitable spirit once again. Their annual holiday food drive collected 8,400 pounds of donations.
Today is our wrap-up for the Sounds of the Season can drive. We've had a great history and tradition of can drives here at the school, but this year we tried to expand our geographic region. We've got stuff from jams to dried goods, lots of cereals, as you can probably see the massive amount of craft dinner. And that sense of giving back is something that we try to grow within our students. When we root it early, we hope that it grows as they become young adults and something they can share with their families and their communities.
No matter who you are,
There's always an opportunity to give to others, even if it's something small like 1 can or like 100 cans. It still matters that you're making a difference for a family.
I learned that our community is more helpful than I thought. Honestly, I didn't expect that many people from our community to come out and help us, but some people actually brought stuff to the school specifically. This is just a great way for us to give back.
The local Canadian Mental Health Association and the Special Olympics benefited from the inaugural Run with Responders 5K today. Police and fire officials presented a pretty big check to both organizations.
The CMHA money will be used for a project that they have which benefits different first responders with mental health crisis issues, and the Special Olympics money will go, of course, to keep the Special Olympics athletes in our community busy and training and doing all sorts of fun stuff. We're happy that the money will go to organizations that can really use it.
In total, the two groups received $9,400 from those first responders. Now, the 5K run was part of the 2023 Fire Fest. It's an annual event in which firefighters compete in physical events to raise money for local causes. Nearly 300 runners and walkers of all ages participated in the 5K run. Now, Christmas is coming a bit early for kids at Windsor Regional Hospital thanks to the hard work of Alexis Donnelly. Now, Donnelly is just 12 years old. She's a student at Assumption Middle School, and she raised $5,000 to buy gifts for children in the pediatric ward at Windsor Regional Hospital.
And we still have to go out and get a few more things tonight, so there'll be more added to this, but that's okay.
Like, I was just feeling like I want to help more people, because I used to like barely help anybody because I was like to myself, like quiet, but now I'm like kind of a little bit more out and like trying to help more people.
It's a blessing. You don't see 12-year-old children her age wanting to give. It's more the receiving end of things, but she's more selfless and kind, and just her heart is in the right spot. So it's, her father and I are very, very proud of her. She had been in there a few times herself for some stuff, and you know, you see firsthand what goes on the inside. And she said, "Mom, they don't get to go home for Christmas." I said, "No, honey, some of them don't. Unfortunately, they have to be here, and their parents come here with them." And she says, "But that's not really a Christmas." So that's when she said, "Is there something I can do to help them? Like, I want to help them."
It makes me feel like happy. It makes me feel like good inside, and I just feel like I think about it and I'm like, oh, it's gonna help these people, and they're gonna love the gifts that we give them, because every year they really appreciate everything we give them. The only present I really need is my family.
Still to come here on CBC Windsor News Live at 6, a mixed bag of weather this weekend. We'll tell you the good and the bad coming up. Time now for a live look at weather, and for that, Nick Cernkovich joins us now. Happy Friday, Nick.
Happy Friday to you too.
Such a great day. I think it was the first day in as long as I can remember, I have a short memory, that I shed my winter coat for something a little lighter on my way into work.
Yeah, no doubt. Did you see anybody wearing shorts by any chance today?
You know what? If it wasn't a professional workplace, I think I would have had my flip-flops on.
Yeah,
for sure.
yeah, I feel like I feel like you would. You know what? I mean, I know 12 degrees, pretty warm for this time of year. The average,
nice.
About 1.5, 2
Wow.
degrees for Windsor. So
We're
put
doing
that in
great.
perspective. Didn't hit a record, but you know what? We're not complaining. We're still sitting above seasonal. Temperatures at 5 degrees right now in Windsor, 8 out in Sarnia. They are coming down a little bit as we head into the overnight, but pretty warm today with those double digits. Cloud cover rolling in across the region. And this is part of this larger system that's going to move through. It's what brought the warmer weather, but it's also going to bring with it a bit of a mixed bag of precipitation and whatnot over the next couple of days. So tomorrow, generally just looking at cloud cover. This all in advance of the system. As we move through tomorrow night, still cloudy, but through the overnight, rainfall moves in around, say, 1 a.m. or so, just after the midnight hour, lasts until about midday on Sunday, and then tapers off to showers. And by Sunday night and Monday, we're looking at flurries that are moving in on the backside of this, maybe even a little bit of light snow. I don't think we'll see anything accumulating it, but you know, you might see a little sprinkling of this depending on where you are. Rainfall accumulations, which is what we're talking about, at least for the first part here, we're looking at about 10 to 15 millimeters of rain in general. Some areas will pick up a little bit more, but for the most part, about 10 to 15 millimeters of rain, tapering off by Sunday afternoon. Winds getting light by tomorrow morning, and then as we move through tomorrow afternoon and into the overnight period, shifting to an easterly direction, and we're looking at wind gusts up to about 40 kilometers per hour. Similar kind of weather, or winds rather, than what we saw earlier on, but this time kind of shifting to the easterly direction, which is generally a little bit cooler. It was those west winds that brought in the warm weather. Overnight tonight, we're looking at temps down to about 3 degrees pretty much everywhere across the region. Still staying above the zero mark, and the overnight lows stay above the zero mark for the next few days, or a couple days anyway. 9 degrees for tomorrow, so still above seasonal, the average being about 1.5, 2 degrees. We've got warm overnight lows insulated by this cloud cover. Rain showers move in on Sunday. Sunday again, about 10 to 15 millimeters of rain, tapering off by the afternoon. Maybe some isolated showers after that, but most of the heavier rainfall ending by about 1 p.m. on Sunday. Then the risk of a few flurries on Monday, temps at 3 degrees, overnight lows getting cool as well, and we're back down closer to the seasonal mark into next week. So this was a little bit of a blip as we head into the weekend here. We've got double-digit temps, but they're getting back to reality for next week.
All right, thanks so much, Nick. Have a great weekend.
Yeah, you too.
Still to come, we'll take you back to 1991 to see a booming Windsor hockey card business. Stay with us. This week's Rose City Rewind takes a look back at a booming Windsor business. Back in 1991, former CBC reporter Percy Hatfield caught up with 7th Inning Sketch right before the holidays to talk about hockey cards. The company in Windsor was distributing popular player memorabilia at rapid speed. Take a look.
I got into it because my mother gave my one son a set of baseball cards and my other kid wanted a set of baseball cards. And that's how we started.
Doug Trudell is a one-man success story. Last year, Trudell's company, 7th Inning Sketch, sold enough junior hockey cards to fill 17 railway cars. This year, he hopes to sell enough cards to fill 3 times as many. He has people working on animal cards to be sold at zoos. Some of his products will be sold on macaroni and cheese boxes, and some under the lids of peanut butter jars. Junior hockey was where Trudell edged into the market. Now, the latest cards in his portfolio will be those of Canada's national teams.
I'm going to do the Winter Olympic team very shortly, probably starting on Monday into production. And we're going to do the entire Olympic team.
Even with the help of his kids, the manufacturing business has grown too big to keep up with the demands of his card shop. He'll close that portion of the business after Christmas. That's because of too many interrupted phone calls from his printers and packagers.
You know, he's getting a shipment ready, a semi, you know, maybe it could be $250,000 worth of product. And I'm interrupting his phone call to talk about whether or not we want to trade a $5 card. And I do it, and they find that amazing.
That was Percy Hatfield reporting back in 1991. Now that's it for us here at CBC Windsor News. Thank you so much for joining us. Don't forget though, for news anytime, head to our website, cbc.ca/Windsor. And you can also download the CBC News app for stories that matter most to you. And don't forget to watch The National tonight at 9 on CBC News Network, 10 p.m. on the CBC News app, CBC TV, and streaming on CBC Gem and CBC Explore. Thanks again so much for tuning in. Have a good night and a great weekend.